Hey guys, welcome back to the Ducks and Dogs podcast. My name is Mike, here with my co-host Matt. We are now entering into week 3, and before we get started on the episode, I just want to give a pre-warning. I live in Florida, my AC went out, so we have a window unit in and fans blowing into the hallway. So you may hear people in the background because my door is not closed as it normally would be. So there may be a little additional background noise, and I'll try and do whatever I can to get rid of that in post-editing.
It's tough out here, man. I feel that in South Dakota right now. It's humid as crap. So
we're gonna start this off with obvious questions for both of us. Which these aren't the hard ones because that'll save for the end because that'll be the whole long tangents.
Yeah.
Expectations versus Arkansas State for you.
Well, for me, just hopping into that matchup, that's obviously a game at the beginning of the season as a Husky fan that you look at and say, well, Arkansas State could prove to be kind of a sleeper, could provide some challenges for us, but a game that UW should pretty easily be able to handle. But considering the start that the Huskies have had to the season, this is kind of a make or break game for this coaching staff. At least I hope so, because I don't know if you've seen the ticket prices for these games. There's a screenshot of tickets in the first, closest to the field, that little section of seats and stuff, $40 for tickets. And you're looking at $5-6 for the nosebleeds and stuff, which that's not typical. So, long story short, the decisions of the administration and people being unhappy with the coaching staff is affecting the pockets of those people. So that's one thing to consider. Also, Arkansas State brings a challenge in a very powerful offense, very explosive offense. I don't think it's something that our defense can't handle. I think they totally can. But if the Washington offense can't go toe to toe with them, it'll only be a matter of time before that defense cracks. So
regarding ticket prices, Oregon has a similar issue right now. They're not really selling tickets to this game against Stony Brook, but it's against Stony Brook. It's supposed to downpour. They're supposed to get 1 to 2 inches of rain during the game. So I don't think people should be overly panicking over, no, attendance is going to be terrible. There's going to be nobody at this Oregon game. I love my Ducks, and I'm not going to that game if I have the opportunity. I'm not going to sit in a downpour while we spank Stony Brook. Stony Brook would struggle with Modern Day probably. I'm not going to go watch that game.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Now the next week, Arizona, if it's not raining, I'd go to that game. Obviously, conference play is a little more interesting. Even though Arizona might be Stony Brook.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into the tough topics for the both of us.
Well, first, Mike, I think we should address something. I think you have some apologizing to do for the starting quarterback of the Oregon Ducks,
Anthony Brown. Man, now I will just preface this with the most simple of statements. I was wrong. I was wrong on Anthony Brown.
Somebody clip it. Somebody archive that. That'll be the only time he will admit this. So cherish this.
Hey, I mean, I've gone on Mark Rogers' show talking about it. I've tweeted about it multiple times. Somebody was told me if you're wrong, you gotta be just as loud when you're wrong as when you were bashing them. So I'm trying to do that. I've went on everywhere I can, trying to be okay, I was Kudos, wrong. Mike. I took a L.
Kudos. Yeah.
Anthony Brown played great. I don't know how closely you watched the game.
Yeah. I was actually sitting in the stands at the Nebraska game before it started watching it. So
so one of the main things, I mentioned this on Mark's show, that surprised me is his pocket presence and his footwork in the pocket is beautiful.
He looked so just crisp.
He stepped up in front of the guy rushing off the right side, stepped back against the guy coming off the left, threw it on a corner route. It was beautiful. He didn't have to do a whole lot, and he's still not the most magnificent passer of the ball. But he's making the right decisions. He's making the right reads. He's not trying to do too much, and he's playing within himself. He knows what he can and can't do, and he knows his limitations. And he played as great a game as we could have expected out of him, way better than I would have ever expected out of him. And he proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong because I wasn't the only one saying it. I was just the only one getting quote tweeted by the entire football team.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, and he proved me wrong. He played great. Anthony Brown is QB1 for this season. And
Yeah.
then hopefully he helps mentor and we figure out which of the three QBs will end up being the quarterback next year. Anthony Brown's playing great. Can't wait to see where he takes us after he helped us beat Ohio State, something that hadn't been done by Marcus Mariota or any other quarterbacks at Oregon. We've had a long list of great quarterbacks. None of them have beaten Ohio State, and Anthony Brown was the one to do that.
So quick
Go ahead.
question for you. If Anthony Brown keeps this up, is he in the Heisman conversation? Is he in that like top 4 conversation?
Let me just double check his stats, but I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
Okay. I don't know, man. I mean, with the Heisman especially, I feel like if your team can get some momentum and you get more eyes on your starting quarterback, like Oregon has already done, considering the fact they went into Columbus and beat Ohio State.
His stats are better than I thought. 17 for 35, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns with 65 yards rushing.
That's pretty solid.
So what, about 300 total yards and 2 touchdowns? I mean, that's not bad with no picks. He's not going to turn the ball over a lot. No matter who he's playing, he's not going to turn the ball over a lot. If he could keep that level of production up, I could see it. But at the same time, if CJ Verdell keeps that level of production up, they're going to steal votes from each other.
Yeah. True.
CJ Verdell balled out.
He looked really good too. I told you that backfield, man. That backfield was going to be key. Keeping those guys healthy.
Man, Sean Dollars still needs to come back. CJ Verdell played a great game, but the issue with CJ Verdell hasn't been his talent level. It's been consistency and him being able to string multiple of those games together. He hasn't been able to do that.
For sure.
And that's why having a Dollars would be huge. Obviously, everybody played well. They played great in the game against Ohio State. We won. I thought we controlled that game. I thought that game was never in doubt, really. Like, watching the game, it's like, okay, at the end of the game, it's like, oh, is this where Ohio State does what Ohio State does and, comes back after falling behind? But never really was like, fuck, we're going to lose this game. And I think even as somebody just watching the scoreboard like you would have been, would you have ever assumed that Oregon wasn't going to win that game after the first half?
It would have taken a lot.
It was a great game.
It was good.
Oregon played great. And I did hear one thing on Twitter that kind of does make sense, which is that Oregon always plays up to the top competition. So when they played Auburn, like under Mario Cristobal, when they played Auburn, they played up to Auburn. And they go play Arizona State, and they play down to Arizona State. So I'm hoping that's not the case this year. I'm hoping it's not you play to the level of your opponents. I hope this is a consistent play. If it is, this team could very well go 12-0.
I mean, especially with a very competitive Pac-12 this year, especially looking at the South, all those games with those teams.
We say that, and then how the season started, now it just looks like Oregon, UCLA.
Yeah.
Washington
that UCLA
was really
pick. Dude.
That UCLA pick by both of us.
Yeah, true. We're truthers right now, UCLA truthers, and it's paying dividends. We look really good right now. So
we both look really bad about Washington.
Yeah. Well, at least you're not the fifth quarter face of Husky football, so you don't have to deal with that directly. But I cannot tell you how many posts I've been tagged in by fifth quarter in college football home in the past 2 weeks. It is agonizing.
Now you know how I feel after that Arizona State game.
True. Yeah.
I got tagged in so much. So let's talk about Washington.
Okay. I'm game. What else is new? I mean,
even if you win this game against Arkansas State and say you bounce back to have a decent season, I don't think you expect to win even 9 games at this point. Do you?
It would be a stretch unless we just go out and stomp Arkansas State by like 30 plus.
If you play well for the rest of the season, I feel like the peak would be 8.
Yeah. I mean, technically speaking, we could still win 10 games. Do I think that's going to happen at this rate, the way the team's played? No, I don't think that's going to happen.
With what you've seen so far, what do you think your odds of beating Oregon are?
Well, considering from last week what we have to go off of, I'm not too confident. But also you mentioned, Oregon playing up and down. If they keep that trend up,
yes, that's
like that could actually keep the game close. And, rivalry, like that game's gone back and forth the past 5 years. Like anything could happen in that situation. But if I have to go off of what I saw this past weekend, I'm not liking it. I'm really not.
So with Washington having, say they do, they perform not well, but they perform okay. So say they win 6-7 games. They make a bowl game, maybe they win that bowl game against a what a San Diego State, a Fresno
Something.
State, if you will.
Yeah.
Uh, say they do that. What does that mean for the state of the program? Because you've been whiffing on recruits already. That's with winning the Pac-12 North. You were missing on recruits in your own territory. You're missing on
Yeah.
recruits against sometimes inferior teams are beating you out for recruits. And one of the worst things I think you would say as a Husky fan is that you're losing out on recruits to Oregon just offering them. And with almost no push immediately after the offer, you're losing guys. Like 3 or 4 guys now, is it?
Well, I mean,
Immediately
Ben
after
Roberts was the most recent one, right?
And then you
So-
had the 2 who did it at the same time. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's a major issue. And what do you think, as of what you've seen this season, like, what is the state of this program if you have to, like, try and break that down and, like, look on the bright side and the dark side a little bit? Like, what's going on with the Washington Huskies football program?
The bright side is if you win 6 or 7 games, I think that's still a respectable season, not up to the standards that you set, but considering how the season started, that's not a terrible finish to the season. I think you get guys doing good things. I think you've seen what Dylan Morris is able to do. He had a pretty good game against Michigan. I think had like almost 300 yards, completed over half his passes, like had a pretty good day.
Kate Otten
You have
and
a
Morris look really good, but the rest of your offense looks terrible.
Yeah, and it's just I don't even know, dude. It's crazy. Like, and there are people screaming, it's Dylan Morris, start Heward, all this, and like, I'm open to Heward playing. Like, that'd be awesome for him to get in some game time, but Dylan Morris isn't the problem.
This
If
isn't
you have guys
just a
putting up
spark thing.
Yeah, if you have guys putting up stats like that and you can only score 10 points against Michigan,
It's
like
offensive
that
line,
is
10 times
that's
out
a
of 10.
problem. Yeah, like, and you can talk about the defense all you want. Our pass defense is elite. Our run
The rush
defense is
terrible.
here's what I'll say about that. It's solid, but Michigan didn't feel pressured like they had to score. Like they didn't have to score right away. They able
To stick with the run. And be
They
consistent.
were able to stick with the run. They were able to figure out what worked because they knew most of the time Washington wasn't going to be able to respond back. They were able to make adjustments mid-game, make adjustments at halftime, take their time with it, figured out what worked and what didn't work, and then they were just able to plug away at what was working. I think I worded that
struggling
correctly.
today, Matt.
Yeah, dude, I'm just all
So-
over the place. It's been a long week.
With that said, does that not mean that Oregon would be one of your least favorable matchups left on your schedule? Especially with how they performed against Ohio State. Running the ball was how they beat Ohio State. Stopping the run was how they beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
And we've seen from your offensive line and your wide receivers, you're not stretching the ball downfield very well, especially if Kayvon's healthy. There's no chance if Kayvon's healthy. So
It's
what is, say they played right now, what is Washington's recipe to beat Oregon? They just got to hope Oregon plays terribly?
they gotta hope Oregon plays down to their level, and you gotta hope that the O-line shows up and they're able to get something going on the ground on offense. Because you can throw together these pass concepts all you want. You can make, have big players make big plays. It's college football. It happens all the time, even on the worst teams in college football. Like, it'll still happen. You got to get a game plan together. You got to have your O-line show up. You have to have John Donovan make a
Fired.
cohesive game plan, because I know for a fact that administration is not going to fire those coaches if they have a 6 or 7 or 5 season. I guess that loops back around to your question about the state of the program. If you have a decent season like that, that might be enough for the administration to say, okay, they've won some games, let's keep them around. And then you slip into the problem of Washington being a 6 or 7 win team for the next few years, not taking that step back up to elite where they clearly would like to be. So did I get off track? Did I answer your question?
No, you answered every bit of the question I wanted answered. So with that said, do you think, now I know it's already been in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Do you think recruiting gets better or worse?
I just have a hard time seeing it get better unless you can land some of those 23 guys. Like, what's his name? Is it Wayne?
Mm-hmm.
From Lincoln High School in Washington. He's
But
a
it's not
5-star.
looking great either.
It's not looking great. He's getting looks from all over the
I
place.
think
If you
you
can
guys
land
are, like,
guys,
As of from what I've heard, like 4th for him.
yeah, that's kind of what it seems like just from looking around. I haven't followed his recruitment very closely. I know that like UW's pushed very heavily being the hometown team
Oregon
for
wants
him,
it
and
too.
like, yeah, it's just You got to land those big time recruits because if not, if you're a 6-7 win team, you're going to stick around that 30, 40th place for recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Like,
Unless you're LSU.
yeah,
Then you can win
like
6 games and land a top 10 class every year.
exactly. And I hate to say it, but this team either needs to turn crap around starting this week and get to claw their way to an 8, 9, 10 win season. Because if you stay at that 6, 7 win season, you're going to
scrap the
fall
whole
into
staff.
a pit of mediocrity. That staff is going to stay way longer than they should at this point, and you're not going to get anything accomplished in the next 5 years.
And it doesn't help that your biggest recruiting rival just beat Ohio State on a national stage in front of 7.7 million viewers.
Mm-hmm. And you had the chance to step up and do the same thing against one of the biggest brands in college football, and you showed up flat.
You laid an egg.
So, yeah.
And that matchup, nationally wise, was viewed as, the A teams of the Pac-12 and Big Ten and the B teams of the Pac-12 and Big Ten. Whether going into the season, Washington fans thought they were better than Oregon or not, nationally, Ohio State, Washington, or Oregon was viewed as the A teams. Michigan, Washington was viewed as the B team, and it was going to be a good marker to see where the teams
Nationally,
were at.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the fact that Washington just fell completely flat on their face and Oregon controlled every aspect of that game just makes it look really bad when it comes to recruiting players. Because not a lot of these players follow college football that heavily. They'll watch those huge marquee games, but that's all they're really watching. They're not watching you play Arkansas State.
Yeah. It should be noted that like 4 big time Washington recruits in the upcoming classes were on Michigan visits at that game. That is not a good look. Guess who was there? Josh Connerly was there at the game.
And he's
that is not a
considering
good look.
Michigan.
Yeah. Like it's not good. It's not good. And I hope that this administration and staff realizes it's not good.
Did you see?
But I don't know if they will in time.
Did you see what that Oregon safety did after the Oregon Ohio State game?
No.
He ran up to the recruits and said, "You want to come play for a real team?" Bro, I love when players do that after beating a team. I love that.
I remember LSU did that when they beat Alabama a couple years ago.
Did you see how chippy that Oregon Ohio State game was? Olave and Michael were like bumping head, like literally after the play, bumping heads the entire game.
Dude, I love it.
Did you see Michael's Instagram post?
No.
Oh, it's him barking at Olave. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love the competition, man. I love it.
I loved it.
It's so
Some people
good.
were hating it. I was like, this is amazing. I love
It's football,
this.
man. People are gonna be passionate, like.
And they were like, fuck Olave after that. I was like, bro, what? I like Olave more after that.
Yeah.
And can you blame? Okay, so you're a Washington fan. Say you were a quality enough player to go D1. You go to Michigan.
Okay.
You wanted to play for Washington. Washington never offered you. Michigan did. You go to Michigan. You're gonna go play Washington. You're gonna be kind of pissed off they never offered you.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with Olave. Olave
100%.
grew up a Duck fan, wanted to play for Oregon.
Never got
to play for Oregon. And he was.
I do remember seeing that
you
story.
could tell.
Like up.
Olave has never played like that. He's never wanted to get up in people's faces. He's never wanted to get emotional. He was mad. And I love seeing that fire too. And it also shows you at the same time how much being an Oregon fan meant to him. Yeah. He didn't get that offer and he's pissed. And there's a bunch of other players like that. We talked with Mark Rogers about it. Tua Tagovailoa, Mackenzie Milton. There's so many guys who just didn't get them. It happens for every school, but a lot of the most prominent names in college football over the last few years grew up Oregon fans, and Oregon never offered them. Thanks, Mark Helfrich.
Also, shout out Florida State, because now the attention is not on UW and it is on Florida State after that Hail Mary that they gave up at the end of the game against Jackson State.
Jacksonville State's pretty good too, though, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm saying the quality of loss is about the same as Montana.
Yeah, probably. Dude, I was watching that live with my friends. That was crazy.
See, but Florida State also has the argument that they almost beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's very like,
y'all got blown out by Michigan and lost to an FCS.
Florida State has a quality loss and a not quality loss. Washington has a very not quality loss and a
not quality loss.
Quality loss, yeah. So,
Washington might be the best 0-2 team in the country. Well, no, they're probably not. Florida State's better than them.
You think so?
I think Florida State would beat you right now, yes. Yeah. Because Mackenzie Milton's playing quarterback. They look completely different with Mackenzie Milton versus Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't know
know.
how heavy you've watched them, but it's not
I don't
even that
know.
Mackenzie Milton plays great. It's that team seems to rally around Mackenzie Milton.
True. They had amazing. I watched that Notre Dame game they played too. The
When
energy around that
Mackenzie
team was
came in,
crazy.
it was
Yeah.
crazy. Exactly. That
Mhm.
team, if Mackenzie Milton's playing, I think they beat Washington 7 out of 10 times. Now, if Jordan
I'd give it at
Travis is
least
playing, I think it's
50-50.
like 5-5.
I'd give it at least 50-50.
So, what do you think it is with Travis? You guys winning 7?
Yeah. 7 or
See,
8.
no, I think it's vice versa. They win 7 or 8 with Mackenzie, and it's 50-50 with Travis.
See, I'm a homer though. Yeah, my homer side has to come out every once in a while because
Well,
I'm pretty pessimistic in the first place.
my thought
so.
is both teams have a really good X's and O's head coach.
Mhm.
Mike Norvell and Jimmy Lake, both really good X's and O's head coaches. Florida State's more talented.
Yeah.
And I don't know that many of your I think their coordinators are better than yours by default.
Well, anybody's better than John Donovan, so that's
You know,
not
I remember
a
our
very.
first episode when I said John Donovan was terrible, and you said he's not that bad. He'll be okay at Washington. Blah, blah, blah,
Hey,
blah.
I didn't say he'd be great. I said he'd be okay, but now I have been proven wrong. That is me admitting I am wrong. Granted, it wasn't quite to the scale of your Anthony Brown episode, but
Well, that's because like you don't put yourself out there that much.
no, I don't. You're
I
right.
will put myself all the way out there. I do not care. I am ready.
Like
for
I said,
all the
man,
smoke.
we're yin and yang out here.
It works. It works.
It works. It really works.
So with that said, do you have any interesting storylines in general college football you're going to be watching? We are trying to keep this episode shorter, so we might not have too much more to talk about. But do you have any interesting storylines you're watching other than apparently you're watching Anthony Brown for Heisman?
Well, I don't know if he keeps it up. Like people throw his hat in the ring, like throw his name in the conversation.
CJ
So,
Verdell went from not on the betting odds to 12th.
did he really? Solid. Also, big headline, Washington related still, but Washington is minus 16.5 over Arkansas State. I think that is
I think y'all are winning, but I'm taking Arkansas State.
extremely generous. I would not take that bet. So I just find that very interesting when the team hasn't even put 17 points on the board yet this season, but we'll see. As far as anything else in college football, I don't know. My football team travels down to Fremont, Nebraska this weekend to play a really good Midland University team that squeaked into the top 25. So that should be interesting.
In the top 25 of what? NAIA?
NAIA, yeah.
Hmm.
So we'll see. I'll
Interesting.
report back to you next week. Yeah.
Well, let's all root for Matt. Let's none of us root for the Huskies. But I want to thank you all for watching this episode of the Ducks and Dogs podcast, powered by Anchor. Check out the sponsor at the beginning and the middle of our shows. And we want to thank you guys for tuning in every week and all the support you've shown the show. And this is us signing off.
See you guys.